Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's September 27th. What are you doing with all of your tomatoes? If you're looking for a good recipe, I have a suggestion for you. Ina Garten's roasted tomato soup. A few years ago, I stumbled on this recipe, and in my opinion, it's the best roasted tomato basil soup recipe out there. It's so good. Ina's recipe calls for fresh tomatoes and herbs, and she doesn't use cream or milk. Best of all, Ina's soup is rich and full of flavor. Let me walk you through it. First, you're going to preheat the oven to 400 degrees and line a baking sheet with parchment paper and then set that aside. Then gently toss the tomatoes from your garden with a quarter cup of olive oil and layer them on the prepared baking sheet. Now, I usually cut my tomatoes in half or quarters. You can do whatever works for you. And then sprinkle them with salt and pepper and then roast them for 45 minutes. While that's happening, I get my large Dutch oven out, heat up some olive oil and butter over medium heat, and then add onions, garlic, red pepper flakes, and a pinch of salt. Saute all of that until the onions are translucent and start to brown. It takes about 10 minutes for that to happen. Then you're going to add the canned tomatoes that are in this recipe, some basil, thyme, and then the roasted tomatoes come in, including all of the juices. And don't forget to add the chicken stock as well. You're going to season all of that with salt and pepper to taste. Bring the soup up to a simmer. Let it cook for 40 minutes uncovered, and then transfer the soup to a blender and puree it until smooth. Then you can serve it with a drizzle of cream or a dollop of sour cream, some fresh Parmesan, and of course, a side of grilled cheese. So that's what I do with any extra tomatoes this time of year. And of course, the grilled cheese cut on the diagonal, and then you'll have one of the comfiest meals ever. I'll share Ina's recipe in today's show notes. Here's today's brevities. On this day in 1843, the New England farmer ran an ad about chrysanthemums for nurseryman Joseph Breck. The subscribers offer for sale 20 varieties of new chrysanthemums of the most superb and rare sorts at 50 cents per pot. That was a pretty good price back in 1843. And today is the birthday of Joy Morton, who was born on this day in 1855. Morton's father was J. Sterling Morton, the founder of Arbor Day and a former Secretary of Agriculture under President Cleveland. Not surprisingly, Joy's love of trees was instilled in him at a young age. Raised on a farm in Nebraska, Joy Morton became a powerful businessman in Chicago with his company called Morton Salt. In December 1922, Joy established the Morton Arboretum, a tract of land dedicated to the ongoing study of trees, shrubs, and grasses. The following year, Morton donated his family's ancestral home, Arbor Lodge, to Nebraska, and the property became a state park and a memorial to his father. An article from the Chicago Tribune in 1926 offers us a glimpse of the passion that Morton felt about trees. Speaking at the Arboretum, Morton said, "I want to appeal to the gambling instinct of the American people. I want a man to come in here and say, 'What can I get out of tree planting?' I want to arouse his sense of venturesomeness. A man old enough to think for himself comes in here and sees a group like that. He's pointing at a group of walnut trees, which is doing so well. And then he says to himself, well, how about it? What can I do now on my land that will mean something to my grandchildren 30 years hence? And then I want him to keep looking at the walnuts or what he likes best until he says, I believe I'll go and do likewise. He's a good campaigner. And today is the birthday of James Drummond Doyle, who was born on this day in 1877. Doyle had gone to Harvard, and then after graduation, at the age of 22, he made his way to Hawaii in 1899. After living there 2 years, Dole honed in on growing pineapple as a business. The smooth cayenne strain of pineapple wasn't native to Hawaii. It was a Florida variety. But sadly, the native variety, Kona, couldn't be grown commercially. So Doyle began growing 200 smooth cayenne pineapple plants on 60 acres, and the rest is history. The Dole Pineapple Company was born. In honor of Dole's birthday, here are a few fun pineapple facts. Pineapples have bromelain, a chemical that prevents gelatin from setting. But once pineapple is canned, the bromelain is destroyed, which is why you can add canned pineapple to Jell-O. Christopher Columbus brought pineapples back to Spain from the Caribbean island of Guadeloupe in 1493. It was the Spanish who introduced pineapples to Hawaii. And today, thanks to Dole, more than a third of the world's commercial supply of pineapples comes from Hawaii. In Unearthed Words, here are some quotes about the end of September. This first one's from John Burroughs. How beautiful leaves grow old, how full of light and color are their last days. This one's from Elizabeth Bowen. Autumn arrives early in the morning, but spring at the close of the day. And finally, here's one from Bonaro Overstreet. Autumn asks that we prepare for the future, that we be wise in the ways of garnering and keeping. But it also asks that we learn to let go, to acknowledge the beauty of sparseness. Today's book recommendation is Hedge Maids and Fairy Candles by Jack Sanders. This is a lovely little book and a personal favorite of mine. It came out in 1995, and the subtitle is The Lives and Lore of North American Wildflowers. The hedge maids referred to in the title is a reference to the common ground ivy, while fairy candles are the tall white rockets of the native black cohosh, Actea racemosa. In the book, the author Jack Sanders explores the lives and lore of more than 80 of North America's most popular wildflowers, describing the origins of their names, their place in history and literature, ancient uses and what uses they have now, where they grow, propagation, and so forth. You can get used copies of Hedge Maids and Fairy Candles using the Amazon link in today's show notes for as little as 25 cents. Here's today's garden chore. Your chore today is to remember the things you want to keep top of mind about this year's garden. So take a few minutes to write down some notes. Aside from what you liked and what was a bust, try to put together a list of things you'd like to do in your 2020 garden. Then get your calendar out and sync it up. If you want a pond installed by your kids' graduation, you need to be making calls now. If you know you need some mulch delivered first thing next spring, then put a reminder on your calendar for the middle of April. Better yet, if you know how much you need, make a note of that as well. All the minutia of our gardens that we think is unforgettable is lost to us once our lives get busy and the holidays roll around. So grab a pumpkin spice latte and your favorite notebook and start journaling for a more strategic start in your garden next year. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Sunday is the 29th of September, also known as Michaelmas. In the Middle Ages in England, farmers used Michaelmas as a way to mark the change of seasons. It was time to wrap up the reaping and start getting ready for winter. And according to folklore, bounty thorn, the English folk name for blackberries, needed to be picked by Michaelmas because that was the day Lucifer was expelled from heaven. Once he was cast out, Lucifer promptly fell straight into a blackberry bush. Now, if you know the blackberry bush, you know it would not make for a soft landing. Lucifer wasn't thrilled with it either. He supposedly cursed the blackberry fruit, making them unfit for consumption after Michaelmas. So unless you want to eat tainted blackberries, get them picked before Sunday. And don't forget, blackberries make a lovely pie or crumble. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you on Monday. Okay, here we go. On this day in 1843, let's start that again. According to folklore, and here my mic is not working right. Here we go. Autumn asks that we be, let's start that again. And according to, okay, here we go. Yeah, let's try that again. And according to folklore, bounty thorn, the English name for blackberries, needed to be picked by Michaelmas.